Have you ever wondered why one careless remark can ruin your entire day? A single insult, one harsh opinion, or one moment of criticism can stay in your mind long after everyone else has forgotten it. The real question is, why do we allow other people to have that much influence over our emotions? Most people spend their lives reacting to everything they hear without realizing that every emotional reaction gives someone else a little more control over their inner peace. The moment another person can dictate how you feel, they hold power you never intended to give away. The strongest people understand a lesson that most never discover. Not every battle deserves your attention. Not every accusation deserves an answer. And not every person deserves access to your emotions. Real strength is knowing what to ignore, because every unnecessary reaction steals your focus, drains your energy, and pulls you away from the life you're trying to build. In this video, you'll discover asterisk 7 powerful lessons that reveal why ignoring the right things is not weakness. It is one of the highest forms of emotional intelligence. By the end, you'll understand why silence is often the response that speaks the loudest. Chapter 1. Every reaction gives away. Your power. Many of life's biggest conflicts begin with something surprisingly small. One careless comment, one insult, one attempt to provoke you. The moment you respond emotionally, the situation starts growing. A simple disagreement becomes an argument. The argument becomes stress. Before you know it, your peace has disappeared. Here's what many people never recognize. Not everyone who criticizes you wants a conversation. Some people simply want a reaction. They enjoy knowing they can disturb your emotions. The moment you lose control, they achieve exactly what they wanted. Your attention becomes their reward. Your frustration becomes their victory. But everything changes when you refuse to react. The person expecting an emotional response suddenly loses their influence. Their words no longer have the impact they hoped for because you refuse to give them permission to control your state of mind. Ignoring unnecessary negativity isn't avoidance. It's discipline. It's emotional strength. It shows that you value your peace enough to protect it from people who haven't earned access to it. The less you react to meaningless opinions, the calmer, stronger, and more confident you become. Chapter 2. Not every opinion deserves your attention. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they must answer every opinion others have about them. Today, everyone has a platform. Whether it's social media, the workplace, or everyday conversations, criticism appears everywhere. It often feels like you have to explain yourself, defend every decision, and convince everyone that you're right. But here's the truth. No matter how kind you are, no matter how hard you work, no matter how carefully you live, someone will still misunderstand you. Some people judge without knowing your story. Others project their own fears, frustrations, or insecurities onto you. And some simply dislike you for reasons that have nothing to do with you. That's human nature. The problem begins when you believe every misunderstanding needs correcting. You spend valuable hours explaining yourself, defending your choices, trying to change minds that were never open in the first place. Eventually, you realize something important. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Just like your time and your energy, it should be invested wisely, not wasted on people determined to misunderstand you. Instead of chasing approval, emotionally strong people invest their focus where it actually changes their lives. They improve their skills, they build meaningful goals, they strengthen their mindset, and while others remain distracted by criticism, they continue moving forward. The moment you stop seeking validation from everyone around you, something remarkable happens. Your mind becomes quieter, your confidence grows naturally, and your life begins moving in the direction you choose, not the direction of other people's opinions. That is real freedom. Chapter 3, silence is emotional Strength most people believe silence means surrender. In reality, silence often requires far more strength than speaking. When someone insults you, questions your character, or deliberately tries to provoke you, your first instinct is usually immediate defense. Your emotions rise. Your heart beats faster. Your mind races to find the perfect comeback. Reacting feels automatic. But automatic reactions rarely create peaceful outcomes. A small disagreement quickly becomes a long argument. Minutes become hours. Energy disappears. Peace is replaced with frustration. Silence interrupts that cycle. Choosing not to react immediately doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you've mastered something far more valuable than winning an argument. You've mastered yourself. True emotional maturity isn't measured by how loudly you defend yourself. It's measured by how calmly you protect your inner peace. Sometimes the strongest response is the one that never needs to be spoken. Instead of allowing anger to make your decisions, you choose something far more powerful. You choose self-control. You pause, you breathe, and in that brief moment of silence, you stop emotions from taking control of your actions. That simple pause is one of the greatest signs of emotional discipline. It gives you the chance to see the situation clearly instead of becoming lost in the heat of the moment. Emotionally strong people understand an important truth. Not every conflict deserves their time. Some arguments aren't meant to solve problems. They're designed to create chaos, drain your energy, and pull you away from what truly matters. Once you recognize that, silence no longer feels like weakness. It becomes wisdom. By refusing to participate in pointless conflicts, you protect something far more valuable than your pride. You protect your peace of mind. As this habit grows, something remarkable begins to happen. People notice that you're difficult to provoke. The words that once disturbed you no longer have the same effect. Your calm presence speaks louder than any argument ever could. Without saying much, you send a clear message. My emotions are not controlled by other people. And that quiet confidence becomes one of your greatest strengths. Chapter 4, protect your mental energy like a precious resource. Every single day, your mind begins with a limited amount of mental energy. Just as your body becomes exhausted after physical effort, your mind becomes tired after carrying emotional stress for too long. The problem is that many people spend this valuable energy on things that deserve none of it. One negative comment, one rude message, one unnecessary disagreement. These moments seem small, yet they often stay in our thoughts for hours. We replay conversations repeatedly. We imagine better responses. We create arguments in our heads that no longer exist in reality. Meanwhile, our attention quietly slips away from the things that actually deserve it. The conversation may have ended, but inside your mind, it continues. And every replay steals a little more focus. Instead of thinking about your goals, your family, your future, or the work that could improve your life, your thoughts become trapped inside a cycle of irritation and frustration. That is how a few careless words can quietly consume an entire day. Over weeks, months, and even years, this habit becomes incredibly expensive. It weakens your concentration, it reduces your productivity, it clouds your judgment, and little by little, it chips away at your emotional stability. This is why learning what to ignore is so important. Every distraction you refuse to entertain protects your mental strength. Every unnecessary conflict you walk away from saves valuable energy for the people, goals, and dreams that truly deserve your attention. The strongest minds are not the ones that react to everything. They are the ones that carefully decide what is worthy of their thoughts and what deserves to be left behind. Ignoring unnecessary negativity doesn't just protect your emotions, it protects your mind. Every time someone tries to provoke you and you refuse to engage, something important happens. The conflict ends before it has the chance to grow. There is no argument to replay later. No imaginary conversations running through your head. No emotional burden following you from morning to night. The cycle is broken before it ever begins. That's the hidden power of choosing not to react. Think about how often people allow someone else's behavior to take control of their entire day. A stranger leaves a rude comment online. Suddenly, they're thinking about it for hours. A coworker makes one critical remark. That single sentence follows them all the way home. A brief disagreement happens in the morning, yet it still occupies their thoughts the next day. The event itself lasts only a few moments, but the mind keeps reliving it, and with every replay, more energy is lost. When you respond to every piece of negativity, your mind becomes filled with noise. The important thoughts become harder to hear. Your attention shifts away from your goals and becomes trapped in problems that don't deserve a second thought. But something changes when you begin filtering what deserves your attention. Your mind becomes quieter, your concentration becomes sharper, your emotional balance becomes stronger. This is one reason emotionally resilient people often appear so calm. It's not because they never face criticism, it's because they carefully choose what deserves a place in their thoughts. They treat their attention like a valuable investment. Instead of spending it on drama, pointless arguments, or people looking for conflict, they invest it in learning new skills, improving themselves, building meaningful relationships, and creating a better future. Their focus stays on what they can influence, not on what they cannot control. Ignoring negativity doesn't mean pretending problems don't exist. It means learning the difference between a real issue and an unnecessary distraction. When something truly matters, you deal with it calmly, wisely, and with purpose. But when someone simply wants to steal your peace or waste your energy, you let the moment pass without giving it the attention it demands. That single habit can completely change the way you experience everyday life. With every unnecessary conflict you refuse to entertain, your mind gains more space for better ideas, better decisions, greater creativity, and a deeper sense of peace. Eventually, you begin noticing something surprising. Many of the conflicts that once seemed so important disappear on their own, not because you defeated them, but because you stopped feeding them with your attention. Without your reaction, the drama loses its fuel. What remains is something far more valuable: a clear mind, steady emotions, and the confidence that your inner peace belongs to you alone. Real strength isn't about avoiding the world, it's about deciding where your attention deserves to go. When you master that skill, you create more room for your purpose, your growth, and the life you're trying to build. Chapter 5. Some people are looking for a reaction, not a conversation. One of the most eye-opening lessons you'll ever learn is this: not everyone who speaks to you wants understanding. Some people have no interest in solving problems. They aren't searching for truth, and they certainly aren't looking for peace. They're looking for one thing: a reaction. They want to see whether they can interrupt your calm, capture your attention, and pull you into a conflict that never needed to exist. Once you recognize this pattern, the way you see people begins to change. You'll notice that certain individuals seem to thrive on emotional chaos. They provoke, they criticize, they exaggerate, not because they want answers, but because they enjoy the response. The moment you become angry, they've achieved exactly what they wanted. Your frustration becomes proof that they reached you. Your emotional reaction becomes their reward. But imagine what happens when you refuse to play the game. No argument, no emotional outburst, no endless back and forth, just quiet confidence. Suddenly, the person seeking control discovers they have none. Because the greatest way to defeat manipulation isn't by arguing harder, it's by refusing to hand over your peace in the first place. Your emotional reaction becomes proof that they succeeded. The moment you lose your composure, they've already achieved what they were hoping for. And here's the surprising part: in many cases, The subject of the argument isn't even what matters to them. The real goal is your emotional response. Look around, and you'll see this pattern almost everywhere. On social media, people post insulting comments not because they genuinely care about the conversation, but because they know outrage attracts attention. In everyday life, some people use sarcasm, criticism, or subtle insults for the very same reason. They're testing one simple question. Asterisk, can I make this person lose control? Unfortunately, many people unknowingly accept that challenge. They rush to explain themselves. They try to prove they're right. They spend valuable time defending their reputation, but the more they argue, the more attention they give to the very person seeking it. Every reply keeps the conflict alive. Every emotional response adds more fuel to the fire. Emotionally intelligent people understand a lesson that changes everything. The fastest way to win a pointless battle is to refuse to fight it. When you don't react, the person searching for conflict loses the reward they expected. The argument has nowhere to go. The tension fades, and the attempt to control your emotions quietly fails. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're afraid. It doesn't mean you agree. And it certainly doesn't mean you've been defeated. It simply means you've recognized that protecting your peace is more valuable than proving a point. Some conversations build understanding. Others only create exhaustion. Learning the difference is a sign of wisdom. As you continue practicing this habit, something interesting begins to happen. People notice that you're no longer easy to manipulate. The individuals who once tried to provoke you realize their tactics no longer work. Without the reaction they were hoping for, many simply lose interest and move on. Conflict survives on attention. Take away the attention, and the conflict often disappears with it. But there's another benefit that many people overlook. Every unnecessary argument leaves a hidden cost. Even after the conversation ends, your mind keeps replaying it. You think about what was said. You imagine different responses. You relive the emotions again and again. Meanwhile, your focus, productivity, and peace slowly fade away. Choosing not to react protects you from carrying that emotional weight. Instead of allowing one negative moment to control your entire day, you leave it behind and continue moving forward. Your mind stays clear. Your emotions remain balanced, and your energy stays available for the people and goals that genuinely deserve it. Eventually, you'll discover another important truth. Many people who constantly provoke others aren't acting from confidence, they're acting from insecurity. Sometimes they seek attention because they don't know how to earn it in healthier ways. Sometimes they create conflict because they're struggling with frustrations they haven't learned to manage. That doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps you understand it. And once you understand it, you stop taking it personally. Instead of reacting with anger, you respond with awareness because you realize their actions reveal far more about their inner struggles than they ever reveal about you. That understanding gives you something arguments never can: the freedom to walk away with your peace still intact. Once you understand this, something begins to change. You stop taking other people's behavior personally. Instead of being pulled into their emotional storms, you simply step aside and let them pass. That decision does more than protect your peace. It strengthens your self-discipline. Every time you choose not to react, you remind yourself of an important truth. Your emotions belong to you. They should never be controlled by someone else's words, opinions, or attempts to provoke you. Slowly, your priorities begin to shift. Winning arguments no longer feels as important as protecting your peace. Proving people wrong becomes less satisfying than staying calm. And that change creates something incredibly powerful: emotional independence. Your happiness is no longer determined by how other people behave. Instead, it comes from the control you've developed over yourself. As you continue living this way, you'll notice something surprising. Many situations that once seemed impossible to avoid simply disappear. The arguments never happen. The tension fades. The drama quietly dies. Why? Because conflict needs participation to survive. Without your reaction, many problems lose their momentum before they ever become serious. This is the hidden strength of ignoring what doesn't deserve your attention. While others become overwhelmed by anger, you remain steady. While others waste energy on pointless battles, you keep moving toward your goals. And in doing so, you discover one of life's greatest advantages. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every challenge deserves your response. When you truly accept that lesson, you gain something far more valuable than the satisfaction of winning an argument. You gain peace instead of conflict, clarity instead of confusion, self-control instead of emotional chaos, and those choices quietly transform the quality of your everyday life. Chapter 6. You don't owe everyone an explanation. Many people carry an invisible burden without even realizing it. They constantly feel the need to explain themselves. Every decision, every change, every new direction feels like something that must be justified to the people around them. Jam your career. Someone asks why distance yourself from unhealthy relationships. Someone wants an explanation. Choose a different lifestyle or mindset, and suddenly everyone feels entitled to question your choices. Over time, this creates a pressure that slowly steals confidence and peace of mind. From childhood, many of us are taught to seek approval. We're praised when we meet expectations. We're criticized when we don't. Without noticing, we begin believing that every important decision should make sense to everyone else. At first, this seems harmless. It feels respectful, responsible, even considerate. But over time, it can quietly become exhausting. Instead of living according to your own values, you begin living according to other people's expectations. Whenever someone questions your decisions, your first instinct is to explain everything. You describe your reasons, your intentions, your thought process, hoping that if they understand your perspective, they'll finally approve. Sometimes they will, but many times they won't. Because understanding doesn't depend only on how clearly you explain yourself. It also depends on whether the other person genuinely wants to understand. Some people listen to learn, others listen only to criticize. And no matter how carefully you explain your choices, they'll continue seeing them through the lens of their own experiences, beliefs, and assumptions. That's why trying to convince everyone becomes an endless task. The conversation never truly ends. One explanation leads to another question, another opinion, another criticism. Before long, you're spending more energy defending your path than actually walking it. Emotionally mature people eventually recognize a life-changing truth. Your life is not a courtroom. You don't need to present evidence for every decision you make. The choices that shape your future should be guided by your values, your purpose, and your personal growth, not by the approval of every observer. Think about how much mental energy people waste trying to justify themselves, why they left a job, why they ended a friendship, why they've changed their habits, why they refuse to tolerate certain behavior any longer. Meaningful communication certainly has its place, but explaining yourself to everyone who questions you is a completely different habit. Not everyone deserves access to your personal reasoning. Some people ask because they genuinely care. Others ask because they're curious. And some ask because they're looking for something to judge. When you explain yourself to the wrong people, you unknowingly give them influence over decisions that belong only to you. Confident people understand something different. Being clear with yourself matters far more than being accepted by everyone else. When you're certain about your direction, you stop feeling the need to defend it. Instead of arguing for your choices, you allow your actions and eventually your results to tell the story. There's another benefit that many people never notice. The more you explain, the more opportunities you create for unnecessary doubt. Every explanation invites another opinion, another debate, another chance for someone to question what was already the right decision for you. A simple choice can quickly become an exhausting discussion. Sometimes protecting your confidence means protecting your silence. By letting go of unnecessary explanations, you give yourself permission to grow without constantly asking for approval. Your life becomes guided by purpose rather than public opinion. Of course, this doesn't mean you should stop communicating altogether. Healthy relationships are built on honesty, trust, and open conversations. But there's an important difference between sharing your thoughts and constantly defending your existence. One creates connection, the other creates pressure. People who truly respect you won't demand endless justifications for every decision you make. They may ask questions with genuine interest, but they'll also recognize that your life belongs to you. Healthy relationships leave room for individuality, for growth, for change, without turning every personal decision into a debate. Perhaps the greatest reward of all is the confidence this habit builds. Every time you trust your own judgment instead of seeking permission, your self-belief grows stronger. Little by little, you stop looking outward for validation, and you begin finding it within yourself. That is where lasting confidence is born. Eventually, you reach a powerful realization. Your path doesn't need universal approval to have value. A decision isn't right because everyone agrees with it. It's right because it aligns with the person you're becoming. Real confidence isn't built by collecting approval from other people. It's built every time you choose your values over outside opinions. With every decision you make for yourself, your inner strength grows a little stronger. Slowly, criticism loses its ability to shake you. Misunderstandings become easier to accept. And instead of asking, "What will people think?" you begin asking a far more important question. Does this choice move me closer to the life I truly want? That single shift changes everything. Remember this: people only see a small part of your story. They don't see the sleepless nights, the private struggles, the sacrifices, the lessons that shaped your decisions. They judge the chapter they can see, while you have lived the entire book. So expecting everyone to fully understand your journey is an impossible task. The moment you stop expecting complete understanding, you remove a heavy weight from your shoulders. You stop chasing acceptance. You start living authentically. Your choices become simpler because they are guided by purpose instead of public opinion. If you study people who live with genuine peace, you'll notice a common habit. They respect others. They communicate honestly when it matters. But they don't spend their lives defending every decision they make. Their energy isn't invested in proving themselves. It's invested in becoming better than they were yesterday. While others argue, they build. While others criticize, they improve. While others seek approval, they continue moving forward. That quiet mindset creates a kind of freedom few people ever experience. Each morning you wake up focused on your purpose instead of wondering who might disagree with your choices. Conversations become lighter. Your thoughts become quieter. And your mind is no longer carrying the exhausting burden of trying to satisfy everyone. Eventually, you realize something deeply liberating. Your life belongs to you. No one else will live it. No one else will carry its consequences, and no one else can decide what purpose should guide it. Every person walks a different road, different experiences, different dreams, different lessons, different responsibilities. So your journey was never meant to look like anyone else's. And that's perfectly okay. You don't need permission to become the person you're meant to be. The only approval that truly matters is the peace that comes from living in harmony with your own values. One of life's greatest forms of wisdom is knowing when words add value and when silence protects it. By releasing the need to explain every choice, you protect your independence, you strengthen your confidence, you preserve your emotional energy, and you leave yourself free to focus on what genuinely deserves your attention. That quiet confidence changes something profound. You stop living for applause, and you begin living with intention. Chapter 7, Real Peace Begins. When you stop reacting to everything, many people unknowingly spend their entire lives in reaction mode. Every opinion demands a response. Every criticism feels like a personal attack. Every disagreement becomes a battle that must be won. Every misunderstanding seems urgent enough to correct immediately. Little by little, life becomes exhausting. The mind never stops working. One conversation replaces another. One argument leads to another thought. One emotional moment creates another, until your inner world is filled with constant mental noise. Here's what many people fail to recognize. The greatest source of stress often isn't the event itself, it's the endless thinking that follows it. A careless remark lasts only a few seconds, yet your mind carries it for hours. A disagreement at work ends before lunch, but it continues stealing your attention long after you've arrived home. One negative message appears on your phone, and suddenly your thoughts begin creating conversations that never actually happen. The situation ends, but your reaction keeps it alive. Every replay gives it more power. Every imagined argument gives it more space inside your mind. Eventually, your attention becomes trapped in yesterday's problems instead of today's opportunities. When every situation receives an emotional response, your mind never has time to recover. One reaction creates another thought. That thought creates another emotion. That emotion creates another story. And before long, you're carrying conflicts that no longer exist anywhere except inside your own head. Have you ever noticed yourself replaying a conversation over and over, thinking of the perfect reply hours too late, imagining what you should have said, wondering what the other person might say next? That's how small moments quietly become emotional burdens. But everything begins to change the day you realize one simple truth. Not everything deserves your response. Some situations lose their power the moment you stop feeding them with your attention. Some arguments disappear when they receive no reaction. Some problems solve themselves when you refuse to carry them any further. Real peace doesn't come from controlling every person around you. It comes from controlling what you choose to carry within you. The more carefully you choose your reactions, the quieter your mind becomes, the clearer your thinking becomes, and the more peaceful your life begins to feel. Because in the end, your greatest strength isn't reacting to every voice that calls for your attention. It's knowing which voices deserve silence. Many arguments survive for one simple reason. Both people keep feeding them. Every reply creates another reply. Every emotional reaction invites another attack. The cycle continues until someone finally decides to stop. And surprisingly, that one decision is often enough to make the conflict disappear. Without your attention, many arguments quietly lose their momentum. What once looked like a major problem slowly fades into something insignificant. But don't misunderstand this idea. Choosing not to respond isn't about avoiding responsibility. It isn't about ignoring people who genuinely deserve your time. It's about learning to recognize the difference between conversations that create growth and conversations that only create noise. When a discussion leads to understanding, honesty, or progress, speaking with calmness is worthwhile. But when the only purpose is ego, provocation, or endless conflict, every additional response simply keeps the problem alive. Many people fear silence because they believe it looks like weakness. In reality, the opposite is often true. Remaining calm while someone expects an emotional reaction takes far more strength than arguing ever will. The person who controls their emotions has already won the battle that matters most. There's a simple way to understand this. Imagine a tiny spark landing on dry grass. Left alone, it quickly burns out. But keep feeding it oxygen, and that tiny spark becomes a raging fire. Conflict works exactly the same way. Attention is its oxygen. Every emotional response keeps the flames alive. The moment you stop feeding them, the fire begins to fade on its own. That's why protecting your attention is so powerful. The less energy you give unnecessary conflict, the less space it occupies in your mind. Gradually, something remarkable begins to happen. Your thoughts become quieter. You stop analyzing every conversation. You stop replaying every disagreement. Instead of carrying yesterday's frustrations into today, you simply let them pass. That creates room for something much more valuable: purpose, growth, creativity. Instead of reliving arguments, you begin planning your future. Instead of worrying about how people judge you, you invest your attention in becoming the person you want to be. And instead of reacting emotionally to every disturbance, you develop an inner calm that remains steady even when life around you becomes chaotic. People eventually notice that difference. They realize you're no longer easy to provoke. You're not interested in pointless drama. You don't compete in unnecessary battles. That quiet stability earns more respect than winning 100 arguments ever could. Over time, another surprising lesson reveals itself. Many situations you once considered important were never important at all. The opinions that once kept you awake lose their significance. The criticism that once felt overwhelming becomes background noise. You stop feeling responsible for correcting every misunderstanding. You stop believing every opinion deserves an answer. And with that comes an incredible sense of freedom. Another part of lasting peace comes from accepting something most people resist. You cannot control everyone else's behavior. People will misunderstand you. Some will judge you unfairly. Some will criticize choices they'll never fully understand. Trying to control all of that is an endless battle you'll never win, but you don't have to. Real peace begins when you stop trying. Instead of controlling the outside world, you begin mastering your inner one. Your emotional state no longer depends on other people's behavior. It depends on the choices you make within yourself. That shift changes everything. The more often you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Situations that once triggered instant reactions begin losing their power. Your mind pauses before responding. You become more selective about where your energy goes. And that awareness transforms the way you experience each day. Your thoughts become lighter, your focus becomes stronger, your emotions become steadier, not because life has become easier, but because you've stopped allowing every outside event to dictate your inner world. Eventually, you discover one of life's greatest truths. Peace isn't created by controlling everything around you. It's created by deciding what deserves a place inside your mind. When you master that skill, you reclaim your attention, your emotions, your energy. And your life begins to reflect a quiet strength that no amount of outside noise can easily disturb. That's where real freedom begins, not in changing the world, but in protecting your peace from it. Chapter 8, The Quiet Strength of Walking Away. One of the strongest decisions you'll ever make isn't standing your ground, it's knowing when to walk away. Not every place deserves your presence. Not every conversation deserves your voice. And not every person deserves access to your emotional energy. Yet countless people remain trapped in situations that slowly exhaust them. Arguments that never end. Relationships built on constant conflict. Environments that leave them emotionally drained. Why do they stay? Because walking away is often mistaken for giving up. People fear it will make them look weak. But wisdom tells a different story. Sometimes walking away demands far greater courage than staying. From an early age, we're taught to fight for everything. If someone insults us, we defend ourselves. If someone questions our value, we try to prove them wrong. If someone challenges us, we feel compelled to win. Eventually, life begins to feel like one endless competition. Every disagreement becomes another battle. Every criticism becomes another test. But maturity changes your perspective. You realize that not every battle deserves your strength. Some people aren't searching for truth. They're searching for conflict. Some don't want understanding. They want attention. Others simply enjoy watching emotional reactions unfold. The moment you recognize this, your choices become much simpler. Instead of stepping into another pointless argument, you quietly step away. And that single decision changes everything. Walking away doesn't mean you agree. It doesn't mean you've accepted disrespect. It means you've decided your peace is worth more than the temporary satisfaction of proving someone wrong. For many people, the hardest obstacle isn't the other person. It's their own ego. The ego craves recognition. It wants the final word. It whispers. If you don't answer, they'll think you've lost. But genuine confidence doesn't need to announce itself. People who truly believe in themselves don't feel compelled to defend their worth in every conversation. They understand that silence can be far more powerful than endless explanation. Every time you walk away from unnecessary conflict, you strengthen your self-control. You prove that your emotions cannot be controlled by someone else's behavior. Instead of allowing anger to choose your actions, you allow wisdom to lead them. And every time you make that choice, your inner strength grows a little stronger. Walking away also protects something most people underestimate: your mental energy. Arguments rarely end when the conversation finishes. They continue inside your mind. You replay the words. You imagine better responses. You relive emotions that should have ended hours earlier. That's the hidden cost of unnecessary conflict. But when you leave early, the cycle never begins. The argument loses its opportunity to take root in your thoughts. Your mind remains clear. Your focus stays where it belongs, and your emotional energy remains available for the people and goals that genuinely deserve it. Walking away teaches another life-changing lesson. You cannot control what others think. You cannot force respect. You cannot make everyone understand your intentions. But you can control how much influence those opinions have over your life. The moment you accept that, an incredible sense of freedom appears. You stop trying to manage everyone else's expectations. You start managing your own peace instead. And perhaps the greatest reward of walking away is something few people ever talk about. It protects your dignity. Not every insult deserves an answer. Not every accusation deserves your attention. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is refusing to lower yourself to a level where your character is measured by someone else's anger. Walking away isn't running from conflict. It's choosing a future that's more valuable than another pointless fight, and that quiet decision often reveals a strength louder than any argument ever could. When emotions take control, people often say things they never intended to say. Voices grow louder. Patience disappears. Respect begins to fade, and within a few minutes, words spoken in anger can leave wounds that remain long after the argument itself has ended. That's why one of the wisest decisions you can make is knowing when to stop before reaching that point. Walking away isn't escaping the conversation, it's protecting the relationship and protecting yourself. Instead of becoming another person driven by anger, you choose something far more valuable. You choose self-control. You leave with your integrity untouched. Your character remains stronger than your emotions. And that quiet decision speaks louder than any clever comeback ever could. As time passes, people begin noticing that difference. They realize you're not easily drawn into unnecessary drama. Provocations no longer shake you. Tension no longer controls your behavior. While others react impulsively, you remain composed. That kind of emotional stability earns respect naturally, not because you demand it, but because you demonstrate it. People begin to understand that you don't waste your strength on every challenge that appears before you. You choose your battles wisely, And because of that, your attention becomes something valuable, not something everyone can easily steal. Walking away gives you something else most people overlook. It gives you time. Time that would have been lost in pointless arguments can now be invested somewhere meaningful, into learning, into building, into creating, into improving your health, your relationships, your purpose, and your future. Every conflict you avoid creates more space for progress. Little by little, your life begins moving in a different direction. Instead of reacting to the world, you begin shaping it. Perhaps the greatest reward comes quietly. As you continue practicing this habit, other people's behavior slowly loses its ability to disturb your peace. Harsh comments no longer echo through your mind. Arguments stop following you home. Situations that once felt overwhelming begin looking surprisingly small. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It grows with every decision to remain calm. Every time you choose peace over pride, wisdom over impulse, silence over unnecessary conflict, your emotional strength becomes a little stronger. Eventually, you discover something that many people spend their entire lives searching for. Real power has very little to do with controlling other people. Real power is mastering yourself. It's remaining steady when everything around you feels unstable. It's protecting your peace when the world invites you into chaos. Walking away isn't surrender. It's wisdom in action. It's the moment you decide that your future deserves more attention than another pointless argument. And once that lesson becomes part of who you are, life begins to change. The noise becomes quieter. Your thinking becomes clearer. Your energy naturally flows toward the people, opportunities, and dreams that deserve it most. Then you realize one final truth. Sometimes the strongest step forward is the step that quietly walks away. Chapter 9, your attention is the most valuable investment you make among everything you own. There is one resource more valuable than time, money, or possessions. Your attention. Every day, your mind decides where that attention will go. It can be invested in your purpose, your health, your relationships, and the future you're working to create. Or it can disappear into arguments, distractions, and problems that never deserved it in the first place. Most people never realize that the quality of their life is shaped by the quality of their attention. Whatever consistently occupies your mind eventually shapes your emotions, your habits, and your future. Today's world is designed to compete for your focus. Every notification wants your eyes. Every headline wants your emotions. Every opinion wants your reaction. Social media, advertisements, breaking news, endless online debates. Everywhere you look, something is asking for a small piece of your attention. The danger is that most people give it away without ever noticing. Attention works much like an investment. Where you place it determines what grows. Invest it in learning, knowledge grows. Invest it in meaningful relationships, trust grows. Invest it in your goals, progress grows. But invest it in anger, arguments, and negativity, and those things quietly begin growing inside your own mind instead. Think about how often one insignificant moment controls an entire day. A stranger leaves a negative comment. Hours later, you're still thinking about it. Someone criticizes your work. Instead of focusing on improving, your mind keeps replaying the criticism. One unpleasant conversation steals your attention from everything that truly matters. The event itself is brief. The mental cost is enormous. That's why the ability to ignore is so powerful. Not everything that enters your life deserves a place in your mind. Some opinions are nothing more than distractions. Some criticism comes from people who have never walked your path. Some conflicts exist for only one reason: to pull your attention away from your purpose. The moment you understand how valuable your attention really is, everything changes. You stop reacting automatically. Instead, you pause and ask yourself one simple question: will giving this my attention improve my life or simply steal my peace? That single question becomes a filter. And over time, it transforms the way you think, the way you respond, and ultimately, the way you live. That single habit may seem small, but it has the power to completely transform the ways you experience everyday life. If you observe highly successful and emotionally balanced people, you'll notice something interesting. They are extremely protective of their attention. While others spend hours reacting to criticism, debating strangers, or becoming distracted by endless noise, they remain focused on what actually moves their lives forward. Their progress often looks calm from the outside, not because they face fewer problems, but because they refuse to waste their attention on problems that don't deserve it. One of the simplest ways to protect your focus is by refusing to entertain unnecessary negativity. When someone attempts to provoke you and you choose not to engage, you prevent that moment from taking control of your thoughts. Instead of carrying the conflict with you throughout the day, you leave it exactly where it belongs, in the past. Of course, this doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities or avoiding meaningful conversations. Some situations deserve your full attention. Some people deserve honest communication, and some challenges must be faced with courage. The real wisdom lies in recognizing the difference. Does this situation help you grow? Or is it simply demanding your attention without offering anything valuable in return? That question changes everything. Here's another truth most people overlook. Whatever consistently receives your attention begins shaping your inner world. If your thoughts are constantly occupied by criticism, disappointment, and frustration, those emotions quietly become your daily reality. But if your attention is invested in learning, building, creating, improving, your mind gradually becomes stronger, calmer, and more optimistic. Your focus determines the direction of your life. That's why protecting it is one of the greatest forms of self-respect. The fewer unnecessary distractions you allow into your mind, the more clearly you begin to think, ideas become easier to develop, opportunities become easier to recognize. Creativity flows more naturally because your thoughts are no longer buried beneath endless emotional clutter. Little by little, your experience of life begins to change. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by everything happening around you, you become intentional about what deserves your attention. Negative opinions lose their influence. Arguments lose their attraction. Distractions lose their power because you've stopped feeding them with your focus. This discipline also transforms your emotional life. When your attention constantly jumps from one problem to another, your emotions become unstable as well. One criticism changes your mood. One disagreement ruins your afternoon. One careless comment steals your confidence. But when you deliberately direct your attention instead of allowing it to wander, your emotions become far more balanced. You stop reacting automatically. You begin responding thoughtfully. And that difference quietly changes the quality of every day. There's another level of freedom hidden inside this habit. Most people don't realize how often they allow other people to control their thinking. The moment someone can capture your attention whenever they choose, they gain influence over your emotional state. But when you become selective about where your attention goes, you take that influence back. Your mood is no longer dictated by random opinions. Your focus is no longer controlled by outside distractions. Your direction is determined by your own values, and that's real independence. As this discipline grows, your days begin to feel noticeably lighter. Fewer situations disturb your peace. Minor problems stop becoming major emotional events. Your attention naturally returns to what truly matters: your purpose, your relationships, your personal growth, and the future you're creating. Another remarkable benefit is momentum. Progress becomes easier because you're no longer stopping every few hours to recover from unnecessary emotional distractions. Instead of taking one step forward and two steps back, you continue moving steadily. Small efforts begin accumulating, small improvements become lasting results. And over time, those results completely transform your life. This is why the ability to ignore is so valuable. Ignoring isn't pretending problems don't exist. It's refusing to give unimportant problems permission to occupy your mind. Once you understand that principle, your relationship with the world begins to change. You no longer feel pulled in every direction by opinions, headlines, arguments, and endless distractions. Instead, you develop a quiet, unwavering focus. You realize that many things competing for your attention are temporary, but your purpose, your character, and the person you're becoming, those deserve your full attention. That understanding brings remarkable clarity. You stop reacting to everything. You start choosing intentionally. Your energy flows toward growth instead of conflict, toward creativity instead of criticism, toward meaningful relationships instead of meaningless debates. In the end, your attention becomes one of the greatest forces shaping your life. It influences your emotions. It shapes your habits. It determines your future. Protect it wisely, because the power of ignoring isn't about shutting the world out. It's about deciding what deserves a place inside your mind. And once you master that decision, you gain something few people ever truly possess: a peaceful mind that cannot be easily stolen by the noise of the world. When you learn to invest your attention wisely, everything begins to change. Your decisions become clearer, your purpose becomes stronger, and your life starts moving forward with far less confusion and far more intention. Chapter 10, Mastering the Art of Ignoring, there comes a point in life when you stop seeing the world the way you once did. The situations that used to feel overwhelming, the opinions that once seemed impossible to ignore, the conflicts that once consumed your thoughts, suddenly begin losing their power. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. This transformation doesn't happen in a single day. It grows quietly through one life-changing realization. Not everything deserves access to your mind. Most people spend their lives reacting. Every criticism demands an answer. Every disagreement feels personal. Every negative opinion becomes another emotional burden to carry. Without noticing, they hand control of their emotional state to everyone around them. A compliment makes them feel confident. A harsh remark destroys their mood. Their peace rises and falls according to other people's words. But mastering the art of ignoring changes that completely. Instead of allowing every outside voice to control your emotions, you begin making a different choice. You stop reacting automatically. You start responding intentionally. It seems like a small change, yet it quietly transforms every part of your life. The first step is surprisingly simple: learn to pause. Whenever someone criticizes you, challenges you, or deliberately tries to provoke you, your first instinct will probably be to respond immediately, to defend yourself, to explain, to prove your point. But in that brief moment before you speak, something extraordinary becomes possible. You gain a choice. That tiny pause creates space for wisdom. Instead of reacting from emotion, you ask yourself one powerful question: is this truly worth my attention? Sometimes the answer is yes. Many times the answer is no. And when you decide not to give your attention away, the situation often loses its power instantly. The argument has nowhere to grow. The negativity finds no place to settle, because your silence refused to feed it. Another secret to mastering this skill is understanding people more deeply. Not every opinion reflects reality. Many people's reactions reveal more about their own inner world than they ever reveal about yours. Someone carrying frustration often speaks from frustration. Someone filled with insecurity often criticizes others. Someone living in anger usually spreads anger wherever they go. Once you recognize that, you stop treating every opinion as absolute truth. You understand that people speak through the lens of their own experiences, fears, disappointments, and beliefs. That awareness creates emotional distance. Instead of taking every criticism personally, you observe it calmly. You listen without absorbing everything. You realize that not every voice deserves authority over your self-worth. And the moment you stop assigning importance to every careless remark, many words lose their power completely. There's another part of this lesson that many people overlook. You must protect your mental environment. Imagine your mind as a beautiful garden. If weeds are allowed to grow everywhere, eventually they choke the flowers. Negativity works exactly the same way. Constant arguments, drama, resentment, and endless criticism slowly occupy the space where creativity, clarity, and peace should be growing. But every time you choose to ignore unnecessary negativity, you're clearing that garden. You're creating room for better thoughts, better ideas, better habits. Instead of replaying yesterday's arguments, you begin planning tomorrow's opportunities. Instead of carrying emotional weight, you carry purpose. That single habit changes the quality of your thinking. It also changes the quality of your work. Think about how much time disappears because of one unpleasant interaction, one negative conversation, one disrespectful message, one unnecessary disagreement. Hours later, your attention is still trapped there. Meanwhile, your goals wait, your opportunities wait, your dreams wait. But when you master the ability to let those moments go quickly, your concentration remains where it belongs. Your priorities stay protected, and a steady focus produces something incredibly powerful. Consistent progress. Finally, mastering the art of ignoring requires emotional discipline. Ignoring doesn't mean becoming emotionless. You're still human. You'll still feel disappointment, frustration, anger, or hurt. The difference is this: you no longer allow those emotions to become the leader of your decisions. You acknowledge what you feel. You let yourself experience it without denying it. But you refuse to let temporary emotions decide permanent actions. You let the feeling pass, and then you return your attention to what truly deserves it. That is emotional mastery. Not pretending nothing affects you, but choosing not to let every emotion take control of your life. And once that becomes your habit, you'll discover a kind of freedom that no argument, criticism, or opinion can ever take away. When your actions are guided by intention instead of impulse, something remarkable begins to happen. You start trusting yourself. Your confidence no longer depends on the perfect thing or winning every disagreement. It comes from knowing that you remained in control even when someone else tried to take that control away. That kind of confidence cannot be given by other people, and it cannot be taken away by them either. Another gift that comes with this mindset is freedom. For years, many people exhaust themselves trying to manage other people's opinions. They worry about being misunderstood. They replay conversations. They feel responsible for correcting every false assumption and every unfair judgment. But there comes a moment when you realize something incredibly liberating. Not everyone is meant to understand your journey. And that's perfectly okay. The moment you accept that truth, a heavy burden disappears. Instead of spending your life convincing people, you begin living according to your own values. You stop explaining. You start moving. Your progress becomes your answer. Your consistency becomes your explanation. And over time, your results begin speaking far louder than your words ever could. People eventually notice that quiet confidence. They see someone who isn't easily shaken by criticism, someone who refuses to be pulled into unnecessary conflict, someone whose focus stays fixed on something greater than temporary opinions. That calmness sends a message without saying a single word. It tells the world that your emotions are no longer available for manipulation. One of the greatest rewards of this mindset is the peace it quietly creates. When you stop reacting to everything, your mind finally has room to breathe. The constant mental noise begins to fade. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions become steadier. Problems that once seemed enormous suddenly appear much smaller. You start noticing that many conflicts disappear on their own when they receive no attention. That awareness teaches you an important skill. Choose your battles carefully. When something truly deserves your voice, speak with clarity and purpose. When something exists only to distract you, let it pass. That's not avoidance, that's wisdom. Because every unnecessary distraction you ignore creates more room for the things that genuinely improve your life. The longer you practice this way of thinking, the more natural it becomes. Ignoring negativity stops feeling difficult. It becomes automatic. Your mind quickly recognizes which situations deserve your energy and which deserve your silence. The things that once triggered immediate emotional reactions slowly lose their influence. Your attention remains where it belongs, on your growth, your purpose, your future. Eventually, the outside world's noise becomes just that. Noise criticism loses much of its power. Opinions stop controlling your emotions. Drama fades into the background. And that's when the greatest lesson of all becomes clear. Real peace doesn't come from controlling the world around you. It comes from mastering the world within you. Your stability is no longer dependent on external approval. It is rooted in your own character, your own choices, your own values. That inner stability is one of the greatest forms of freedom a person can experience. It allows you to move through life with confidence instead of fear, clarity instead of confusion, and emotional balance instead of constant reaction. In the end, mastering the art of ignoring has never been about avoiding life. It's about protecting your attention, guarding your peace, and deciding with wisdom where your energy truly belongs. When you learn that skill, something extraordinary happens. Life stops controlling you, and you begin leading your life with calm, deliberate intention. Chapter 11, the discipline of emotional detachment. Among all the forms of strength a person can develop, few are as powerful as emotional detachment. Many people misunderstand this idea. They imagine becoming distant, cold, or emotionally numb, but that's not emotional detachment at all. True emotional detachment isn't about caring less. It's about allowing fewer things to disturb your inner peace. It's the ability to remain compassionate without becoming emotionally controlled, to stay present without becoming overwhelmed, to care deeply without carrying every burden as your own. Most people spend their lives reacting to whatever happens around them. A critical comment ruins their confidence. A disagreement consumes their thoughts. One act of unfairness follows them for days. Before they realize it, other people's behavior has taken control of their emotional state. It feels normal. But over time, that pattern quietly becomes a prison. Because when every outside event has the power to change how you feel, your peace becomes fragile. Anyone can disturb it. Anyone can influence it. Anyone can take it away. Emotional detachment changes that completely. Instead of allowing every situation to enter your heart, you learn to observe before absorbing. You begin asking yourself, does this deserve my emotional energy? Sometimes the answer is yes. The people you love, the values you believe in, the responsibilities that shape your future, those deserve your heart. But countless other situations do not. Not every criticism deserves an emotional response. Not every disagreement deserves your peace. Not every person's behavior deserves a place inside your mind. The more clearly you understand that difference, the stronger you become, because emotional detachment doesn't remove your humanity. It protects it. It allows you to remain kind without becoming naive, without becoming passive. Compassionate without sacrificing your own peace. And that balance is one of the rarest forms of emotional maturity a person can ever achieve. When your emotions rise and fall with every opinion, every criticism, and every passing comment, you slowly hand control of your peace to other people. One compliment lifts your mood, one insult destroys it. One disagreement follows you for hours. Without realizing it, you're no longer directing your own life. You're simply reacting to everyone else's. Emotional detachment breaks that cycle. It begins with a single habit: awareness. The moment a strong emotion appears, most people follow it automatically. They argue, they defend themselves, they replay the situation over and over, but emotionally disciplined people do something different. They notice the emotion before they obey it, they pause, they observe. And in that brief moment, they create space between what happened and how they choose to respond. That small space changes everything, because within it lies your freedom. Instead of asking, "How should I react?" you begin asking, "Does this even deserve my energy?" Very often the answer is no. And that's where the true power of ignoring begins. As you practice emotional detachment, something remarkable happens. The words that once hurt you lose their weight. The opinions that once controlled your mood become background noise. Imagine someone criticizing you unfairly. Years ago, you might have rushed to defend yourself. Today, you pause. You realize their words come from their own experiences, beliefs, frustrations, or misunderstandings. Their opinion is about the world they see, not necessarily the truth about who you are. That understanding changes your relationship with criticism. You no longer absorb every opinion as a personal attack. You simply recognize it as another perspective, one that may not deserve a place inside your mind. Another lesson emotional detachment teaches is this: almost everything is temporary. Think back to an argument that once ruined your entire day. How much does it matter now? Probably very little. The same is true for most of today's problems. What feels overwhelming today may become almost meaningless a few weeks from now. Remembering that truth helps you stay calm while the moment is still happening. Instead of carrying every disturbance with you, you allow it to pass, and your peace remains untouched. Emotional detachment also improves your judgment. Strong emotions often cloud clear thinking. People make decisions they'll later regret because they acted from anger instead of wisdom. But when you create space before reacting, your choices become far more thoughtful. You stop asking, "How do I feel right now?" and begin asking, "What response reflects the person I want to become?" That's emotional maturity, not the absence of emotion, but the ability to prevent emotion from becoming your leader. This habit also protects one of your greatest resources, your mental energy. Constant emotional reactions are exhausting. They steal your focus. They reduce your creativity. They distract you from your purpose. But when you stop giving every situation access to your emotions, your energy remains available for the things that truly deserve it: your goals, your family, your future, your personal growth. And here's something equally important. Emotional detachment does, asterisk, not mean becoming cold or uncaring. You still love deeply. You still support people. You still show kindness, empathy, and compassion. The difference is that you choose carefully where your emotional investment belongs. You care without allowing unnecessary negativity to consume you. That balance creates remarkable stability. Your peace no longer depends on circumstances. It comes from within. As this mindset becomes part of your life, you'll notice subtle but powerful changes. Situations that once triggered instant reactions barely affect you. Arguments lose their attraction. Drama loses its appeal. You naturally recognize what deserves your attention and what deserves your silence. People begin noticing this quiet confidence. They realize you're difficult to provoke. You remain composed when others lose control. Your calm presence speaks more loudly than emotional outbursts ever could. Perhaps the greatest reward is the freedom that follows. Life becomes lighter. Your thoughts become clearer. You stop carrying emotional baggage that never belonged to you. Instead of managing constant reactions, you invest your energy in becoming a stronger, wiser, and more purposeful person. Ultimately, emotional detachment isn't about distancing yourself from life. It's about moving through life with awareness instead of impulse. You remain engaged, you remain compassionate, but you refuse to let every disturbance settle inside your heart. You observe without absorbing. You understand without overreacting. You move forward without carrying unnecessary emotional weight. And within that quiet discipline, you discover something extraordinary, a peaceful place inside yourself that remains steady, even when the world around you feels loud and unpredictable. Final reflection, the ability to ignore what doesn't deserve your attention, is one of the greatest forms of strength you'll ever develop. Many people think strength means winning every argument, having the last word, or proving everyone wrong. But real strength is often invisible. It's choosing peace over pride, silence over unnecessary conflict, wisdom over emotional impulse. Throughout your life, you'll meet people who encourage you and people who misunderstand you. Some will inspire your growth. Others will test your patience. You cannot control which people enter your life. But you can always choose how much influence they have over your mind. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you walk away from pointless conflict, every time you refuse to give negativity your attention, you reclaim a little more of your freedom. Your mind becomes quieter, your focus becomes sharper, your confidence grows stronger, and your life gradually becomes guided by purpose instead of distraction. Eventually, you realize something that changes everything. Peace isn't created by controlling everyone around you. It's created by protecting what lives within you. Guard your attention, protect your energy, choose your battles wisely, because the life you build tomorrow depends on what you allow into your mind today. And once you master that truth, you'll discover a kind of strength that no criticism, no opinion, and no amount of noise can ever take away. If this message spoke to you, let me know in the comments. Asterisk, which country are you watching from, and which lesson impacted you the most? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next journey toward a stronger, calmer, and wiser life. Until next time, take care of your mind, protect your peace, and keep moving forward.